Hi, I'm Andy Hyatt, and I want to talk about EKG today. EKG is a note-taking application for Emacs, only Emacs, and it's different than other note-taking applications in Emacs, quite different. And I'd like to talk to you about how it works and why I think it is, to me, when you talk about note-taking applications, there's a whole strain of thought. It's like, oh, your note-taking application is like a second brain. And what people normally mean by that is that you have notes, and those notes are sort of a repository of your knowledge that can exist outside of your head. And you could do certain operations with those notes, and it could be sort of a second brain. I believe what I'm going to show you is the new version of EKG, and it is much more like a actual second brain than any other note-taking app I've seen. That said, I'm sure there's been a lot of advances in note-taking applications in the past year, and I haven't seen most of them, so who knows? But I think this is, to me, I find this significantly useful. More so than, this is one of these things where using Emacs and using EKG can be very, very powerful if you use them in the right way and you find a way to make this work for you. But I'm going to explain how I use it, and hopefully that gives not only shows you what it's like to use this note-taking app, but shows you how you can get the most value out of it and really turn it into something that's like a second brain. So let's start. You see on the screen here, I have an empty database I've just created. It's just shows captured notes. It's an empty database, so there is no notes. So you can press, this is what's called a note buffer. It's just going to list notes. You can press C and create a new note, or you can just press EKG capture. You just meta-x EKG capture. You can bind it to a key binding, and you get a capture buffer. By the way, what you see here is this is my Emacs. I have that set up the way I like it. So when you're trying it on your own Emacs, it's going to look, of course, a little bit different, behave a little bit different. I will link to my setup, my .emacs file, which is on GitHub below in the description. So what we can see here is on the right side of the screen is a EKG buffer. It comes pre-populated with today's date as a tag. So you can see that these tags can have things like slashes. So you want to, in this case, all the dates are prefixed with date / whatever. And everything is very configurable. You don't have to have it pre-populate with a date. You could have it pre-populate with other things. You could have it pre-populate with many other tags, perhaps the week, the year, anything that you might think is necessary for your notes. Oops. Okay, let's show you, you could think of this if you've used an email app on Emacs. This is very similar. You have the metadata on top. Like in the email, it's like to, from, etc. But here it's tags, other kinds of things. I'll show you in a second. And then below is the actual text of the note. And this is all stored, everything is stored in the database, in a database. So nothing is stored on the file system. You don't need a title because of that. And these tags are just metadata that is going to, this is metadata that is going to sort of be stored alongside the notes as like structured data. So you have the tags. We could say EKG is perhaps a tag that we could use, and we could say EKG, this is a demo of EKG. And by default, we use org mode. I'm using Markdown. And I know this is Emacs being Emacs, most people are inclined to use org mode. However, I'm going to describe how we use it as a second brain later, and it involves sending things to large language models. And for that to work well, I think you should have everything in Markdown mode, because large language models use Markdown. They don't really know how to speak org mode. So you could see, like, I could just make EKG, oops, everything. So I could do all the normal Markdown things. Pretty easy. If it was org mode, you could do the same thing. You could also have it be text mode. These are the 3 modes by default. It's extensible, though. You could have other kinds of modes as well. But this is what we kind of test on. And then you could press Control-C, and there is your note. And you could open it back up and edit it. We don't really need this quote here, so okay. Okay, so you see, basically, this is the basics. You can create notes. Those notes can have tags. Also, those tags can have tags with space, or let's say we'll say Emacs modules, and this is a tag too. So you could have tags with spaces, and you could then, once you start having tags, you could show EKG show notes with tag, and you could see the tags we've created here. And you could also show notes with a sequence of tags, and all the notes have to have all the tags, or you could do notes that have any of a group of tags. It's all pretty flexible. And we use these tags for a lot of things. So these tags have functionality that can be associated with them. And I'm going to, there's a few kinds of things. I don't have time to talk about all of the functionality here, but I just want to give you like a taste of what it's like. What do I mean when I say these tags have functionality? Well, let's say that you want to say, like, okay, I would like to write a daily journal. And that means I kind of want to have a template of, like, once I do a journal, I want it to kind of like have some questions I answer every day. So what you do is you could do, okay, you kind of set this up with a note. So journal would be the tag, and template. Template is one of these special tags that kind of identifies this as a template. So because we have the journal and template tag, whenever we insert a journal tag, it'll look for these co-tags, something co-tagged with template, with journal, or whatever tag you add. And it'll be like, okay, well, is this actually if it finds something, it will just insert the text. It's pretty simple. So, we could say, like, what did you accomplish today? What did you feel like you could have done better? Okay. And it doesn't show up here because the tag is not Emacs modules. So I could go back to EKG show notes with latest captured. And you can see this. Okay, so let's just try it out. So it's the end of the day. I'm going to say journal. You can see that we have completion here. And once we complete, we get the template. And that's pretty nice. And then you could do, I did an EKG demo. I need to be more eloquent. So there you go. Like, it's pretty easy, right? Everything, these tags are powerful. Like, other things they could do is you can execute eLisp as part of them. Like, for example, if you have tags in different languages, you could set up, once you have that tag, you could set up the coding system to use a different language, as long as you tag the things in that language. And so all this is sort of like just note bread and butter, okay, right? And you can, now I kind of want to talk about two other aspects that kind of go beyond what a normal note-taking app will do. Before I do that, I just want to mention that we do allow import and export to logseek. So it is kind of nice to have your notes on your phone. And you could do this by exporting with logseek. It's, without paying money, these things are always kind of clunky. So I won't say that it's perfect, but it does work. It just can be a little slow sometimes. And sometimes I have problems with duplicates that I don't really understand. But it's certainly possible. And a lot of people are a little nervous about having all their data in a single database. You could also import from org Roam, and someone is working on export to dnote. So another popular Emacs note-taking app. So this is, I think there's a lot of possibilities. It's actually relatively easy to export and import things. You could, if you wanted to write one, it's the code is not extremely hard. So let's go a little further. I want to show you how to search for things. Now, to search for things, right now we do not have, this is probably going to come later, but we do not have a full text search. And that's really just because it's a little bit hard. It's been a little bit hard for me to debug certain issues that's come up with integrating full text search into the SQLite database this runs on. But that's going to come. But still, what we have though is a way to use embeddings, and you can get embeddings from OpenAI, from most of these providers, including free providers, including local providers like Olama and things like that. So in these embeddings, what they'll do is they basically take your note and kind of encode it as a sort of semantic vector. Okay, so what you could then do is you can do lots of interesting things with this. You basically need to set it up and have it encode all your notes. But once you've done that, I've already set this up, so my notes should be encoded. And I only have 3 things, so it's not going to be incredible. But we could do EKG query, EKG search, EKG embedding search. Yes, that's how you do it. And what I want to show you is that I could search for something, and there is no, I don't use the word demonstration here, but it should be that it's going to get the notes. I mean, it's going to return the top hits anyway, so it's going to get all the notes, but the notes on top should be the ones that are most about the demo. And so you can see here we do, yes, and you can see this is in fact what happened. So you could do this kind of semantic similarity matching across your notes. Even better, you can go to any Emacs buffer and you could say metax EKG embedding show similar, and that will just look at the text of the buffer you're in, make an embedding of that, and show you any notes you have that are similar to that. So it's very powerful, especially if you spend a lot of time in Emacs, and you can say I'm looking at something interesting, and I think I must have noted something that is similar to this. What is that note? You can find it. And I've personally had very nice successes with this kinds of search, especially as these notes, you have more and more notes, and these notes are farther back in time. You're not going to really remember like the exact terms you use, but you often are like, well, I wrote about this interesting idea about this one subject, and you can just write, just type this out in the query, and you will probably find that one note that talked about something similar to what you're thinking of. So yes, we don't really have actual like text matching search. I think this is better, but the disadvantage is you have to set it up. And but you don't have to pay money. You could use local models. Okay, so let's demonstrate what exactly I mean by second brain. Let's demonstrate what I mean by when I talk about using large language models with EKG. What does it even mean to use a large language model with a note-taking app? Here it's pretty easy. So we're just going to create something, and what I usually do. So here's how I usually use it. I use it to ask questions that I know are going to be useful for the future. If it's not going to be useful, like if it's a one-off question and I'm like, this will never, like, I just don't need to know this in the future, or it's very isolated or something, then I might ask OpenAI or Claude or whatever directly. But I tend to use this mostly because for most questions, because first of all, I don't really have a great sense of when something's going to be useful or if it's a one-off. But the idea is that like so I'm an engineer, a software engineer by trade, and I think those of us that are software engineers kind of have the experiences like, okay, well, you have a problem, and one of the most useful things is to write up what you know. Like you've had the experience, maybe you write up a bug report and you're like, okay, something's not working. I'm going to describe exactly what's going on. And then you write up and you're like, oh, now that I'm writing this up, I've realized that I haven't tried something that seems obvious. That happens to me a lot. So just writing things up about your problems is useful. So quite a lot of the time, you don't have to ask the LLM anything. Once you write it up, you understand what you sort of did wrong, or what the next step might be. So I don't want to get into like writing these things. This is not going to show off anything I think is interesting. What I think is interesting is that when we send things to the LLM, so we're not going to just when you write something here, what we're going to do is we're going to send it to the LLM along with relevant context from the notes. And the LLM is going to append to the end of that note. You could also have it replace the note. It's usually useful to append, though. I almost never replace. But let's just say, what did I demo today? And in reality, this would be a long, complicated technical question. But I just want to kind of show you that, like, yeah, it knows what you did because it can read your notes, and it's reading notes that have the same tags or that are semantically similar. And so it really sort of like it's answering things based on everything you've done. So one of the questions that a lot of people have with these note-taking apps is like, why should I even write notes? Or I write the notes, but then I never read them. Writing notes, to me, as I kind of mentioned, just the act of writing notes is useful. And it is the case that most people, including me, rarely go back and look at old notes. But the key here is that we don't have to. You don't have to look at your old notes. The large language model will look at your old notes because we are going to provide it as relevant context. So you can see here, like, okay, it knows what EKG is, and it kind of, somewhat interestingly, it kind of knows what this whole note-taking app is. It doesn't really know specifically, but it gives me a really nice answer. Okay, that's great. Really nice answer. That's good. This is, I think, already showing that this is a better second brain than sort of when people talk about notes as a second brain. This is really a second brain here. Here it's all obvious. Like I just wrote it, but imagine that is getting stuff from a year ago that you've already forgotten. Or I'll give you an example from my work. I asked it something like, oh, I cannot figure out how to write this configuration. Like, what's going wrong here? And it not only filled out the configuration for what I was asking for, it kind of just assumed that like, oh, it kind of knew about these other kind of parts of the system that I'm going to need to use as well, that I've already written notes about, and it appended them. And it's sort of like, wow, it's not only answering my questions because it knows about my previous usage. It knows what I will need in the future. You know, it kind of knows the whole. It knows everything I know. Well, not everything, but like the more effort you put in your notes of adding stuff, like the better it's going to be, and that's very powerful. The stuff in OpenAI and Gemini is not. Yeah, it has stuff along these lines. This is better. What's also another thing that's better is that it is giving you text, but this is your text. It's all in your notes. You could do whatever you want with it. Like, for example, I don't think I really care about all of this text. I'm just going to say, yeah, this is really the only thing that I think is interesting. Or let's say it's, if it's a real question, it's giving me real answers. Like, as we all know, a lot of the times the large language models is wrong. So what you want to do, just correct it. And next time it answers a question, it's going to go off corrected data instead of the incorrect data. I think we've all had the experience, if you use large language models, that once it starts doing incorrect things, it's sort of in this bad state. But if you can correct it and you can sort of make sure that your notes represent high quality notes, you're going to keep getting high quality answers. And that's pretty special. Yeah, now of course I could just press G to reload everything. So I could just reload like, oh, the things that are similar to demonstration, it just redoes the query. And now I see that top result is this one I just did. So I think this kind of explains what I mean. There's a lot more I could talk about with various functionality. I would encourage you to read the documentation. If you install EKG, it installs an info manual. So the documentation is there's quite a bit of it, and it goes into a lot of things. But just to give you a flavor, like you could, a few things you could do that I haven't demonstrated is you could have tags that have their own instructions. So for example, for my notes at home, I have like a recipe tag. And then that has instructions that are more particular to like giving me recipe advice. And that's very different than kind of other kinds of notes I take, right? So I want specialized instructions on that. Or if I have you're trying to practice a specific thing, you could certainly do that with large language models. You could have instructions about how you want it to respond. And it, as usual, they do a pretty good job of sticking to what you say. Please check it out. The link is in the description below. We have discussions. You can open bugs. You can contribute. And I think it's, I think this is new and interesting, and I hope you do as well, and I hope you check it out. So thank you for listening.